So we are going to check all these particular pieces from our Jenkins part itself, right? So for that, I'm going to do the installations and management first, which includes launching our instance. This time I'll take a little bit a bigger instance, as we are going to set up different tools over there, right? I'll take a little bit bigger instance, then I'll start setting up all the components that we did in our earlier sessions first, so that it can also be a kind of recall for you. As of now, I don't have any instances over here. Okay, I'm going to create one new instance. Right, I'll go with my CentOS 7 and I'll take a little bit bigger instance. I'll go with T2 large or T large. Okay, I'll fix for this one for timing. I'm going to take like 2 CPUs, 8 gigabytes of RAM. One instance is fine. Okay, this is going to be my project instance. So I need to add different security groups, right? Yes, and you're already aware of this concept, like which particular tool uses what kind of port. You can just check our relevant classes and add accordingly. But for timing, I'm going to say all traffic, right? So that what are the tools like SonarQube, Nexus, Tomcat, Jenkins, right? So I'm going to work with different set of tools. I'm adding all the ports in one go, but you can create your relevant security groups and add them up. Yeah, I'll launch this instance. Okay. Now, once this instance comes up with, I'm going to start slowly setting up all the things required for our server to work, which includes different types of installations to be performed. Now, you can see slowly it's running up. Let's see if it is able to connect. Just give it some time. Yeah, now it's coming up. Okay, we are good. Yes, now there is nothing on the server literally. Now slowly I need to go ahead and set up the process for one by one. And this application, right? Yes, it is built on Java based technology, like our earlier app, which we saw, like how that calculator we had, same app almost. And what I'm going to do is I'll install all the respective things, right? So in case you guys are working with any other technology, this is purely dependent on the development aspect. As I already showed you how the things work from Java perspective, you can apply the similar techniques over here. Right now, the first thing is I'll be installing all the appropriate tools, which includes right wget, unzip, downloading, then extracting the files. We're also going to work with Vim, then followed by Git. Yes, we need Java, right? Then I need Maven, right? So I'm just installing all the typical components that I need to go ahead and work with this, server first. Right. So once this part is done, then I'm gonna install my actual main tool like Jenkins. Then slowly we'll start working with different set of tools to go with. Okay, there you go. Now we have all our different set of tools, that we need as the part of this machine got installed. Now I'm going to slowly get the things like I might need my Jenkins repository. Already Java is installed pre part. Yes, we also need this EPL release, right? Yes. Right. And also we need to have this Jenkins repo file updated. So what I'll do is I'll just get this repo file to be opened up, and I have the content. What should be the file name? etcm.jenkins repo. Sudo vim Jenkins repo. Yes, that's the content. All right. And next we need to have this key imported. Right. And now I can go ahead and start installing the Jenkins patch. Right. Now from our EPL, and even the Jenkins is also detected. Now it's going and setting up the things. Right. Enable the Jenkins. I'm going to start Jenkins up. There you go, that's the address, and we know it's going to run with respect to port 8080. So once this part is done, then you remember it. So we need some kind of plugins and all this. Right? So I'm just going to install the default plugins, and if any additional plugins are required, we might go ahead and work with it. This is sudo. I write out. Take this initial password. Now, in our last class, we saw this part is install the plugins which are suitable for your needs. But this time we are going to install the plugins which are required in order to work with the most common things when it comes to Jenkins patch, right? And also apart from this, yes, if there are any additional plugins required, we can go ahead and work with them too. I can see it will install this basic Git plugins, pipeline, view plugin. It will go ahead and do all these, most widely used plugin setup. And you already know in our previous sessions, if you don't want this, you can, manually install whatever the plugin you want by looking into the manage plugins section of Jenkins. All right, now all these default plugins got installed, and we'll just, like our regular part, we'll set up some credentials and we'll start using it. Jenkins URL. And that's it. Yes. Now we can see our Jenkins setup is ready. All right. Yes. Now we can see our dashboard. Now slowly I'm going to set up what you say is different jobs. And also I need to do the rest of the installations to be done, right? Meaning we require different tools to go and work with, like Maven is installed for build. Similarly, I might need Sonar Cube for this integration part for checking code analysis. Then maybe JUnit. What else, like Nexus for storing the results. Maybe like Tomcat for going and doing the deployment. So I'm just going to install all these particular bits and pieces first, right? Okay. And you already know the links and all this part, right? So let me just get one by one and start going through it. The first thing is, on this particular server, we need to perform the testing, right? Yes. Build, we don't need any specific port in order to go with this. I'll check for port 9000, and you can see we don't have anything running with respect to port 9000. So I'm going to start setting up the Sonar Cube for that. Right, so we don't have anything over here. Now let's slowly start installing the things. Downloading this Sonar Cube software. Right. And I'm just going to say unzip Sonar Cube. Right. And we know how to start this thing. Sonar Cube, bin directory. And let me add sonar.sh file. So start it off. Right, so this should run our Sonar Cube on 9000. Now let's check if it's slowly picking it up. Yeah, it takes some time, like I already explained in the class. Let's wait for a couple of minutes and then we will see if this port 9000 is being used by Sonar Cube. Yes. And we know it will give us some token in order to perform it. We'll go with the same steps. Default credentials, admin and admin. And we'll create now some specific token for this to perform. Continue. Java project, and this is a Maven tool. And this is the build command that you need in order to go with the testing part. Let's keep it here. And I'm going to say finish this. Okay. Now let the Sonar Cube be here. We will use, what do you say, in our pipeline later, how we are going to directly run the commands from the shell. Same way, we also require, what is this tool? Nexus. So now I'm going to also set up this tool called Nexus so that we can store our binaries there. There you go. It's a tar file, so I'm just going to do the extraction first. Right, we got this Nexus in directory. So start it off. Right, now the Nexus is started out. And this thing, it uses port 8081. right? And default credentials, no, it's admin and admin 123. Right, good. So now we're able to log in. And as of now, you can see within our releases, there is nothing, it's completely empty. Then later, once we start doing the build, we are going to perform the builds from this particular patch. Can we download all the tools at a single server in real time? No, Krishna. Generally, we maintain separate servers, which I already showed you in our previous sessions. Got it? So that's the reason why I said now I can't create bigger servers and do all this part, right? So that's the reason I'm just going and doing it in the same server. Only difference is what? IP addresses would change. That's it. Right? Like we know in our release addresses, if you guys recollect in the pom.xml, we used to have this information, release information. So this server is going to be now same as this one, this server. But if you guys are running in a different server, that address would be changed. In the same way, in case if you guys are working with this tool called SonarQube, this address is going to be changed. As of now, it's the same server, that's the same address we are going to use. But in case you launched a standalone server for SonarQube, then you might pass that particular address. That's the only small difference once again. Okay, so either you're doing it in one server or what do you say, multiple servers. Literally the things don't change much, only the addresses are going to be varied off. But in, yes, actually in real time, you'll always have separate servers or basically domain names for all these things. Okay, right. Now fine, yes, we got our Sonar, Nexus, and Jenkins is ready. Tomcat is something which we are going to use for deployment, right? So I'm also gonna download and set up this Tomcat tool as well. Just a second. Oh, yes, I'm gonna download this archive. All right, okay. Tomcat tar file is also there. Right. Now, Tomcat is good. Let's say Apache Tomcat, bin directory, and what is this? Startup.sh, right? Yes. Right. Now the thing here, I did this. Now the problem is Tomcat and Jenkins, right? They both use same ports. So we are going to get some kind of clash between these two things, right? So that's the reason why it is better you change either of the ports. So either you can change the Jenkins port or Tomcat port. I'm just going to show you like how am I going to modify the Tomcat port. And I think we did this even in our sessions also while working with what do you say, that small what do you say, scenario where we had different servers like QA server, dev server, and you pointed different addresses, right? That's the same thing I'm going to do. So what I'll do here is instead of starting it up straight away, I'm going to shut it down first. Then I'll modify some configurations here. Apache Tomcat configuration setting, sorry, server.xml. Okay, now in this particular server.xml, now I look for port 8080, and there you go, you find the port 8080, which I'm going to modify to some other port. Maybe I want to run the Tomcat on port number 9090. This. Now I'm going to start the Tomcat once again. This time Tomcat will use port called 9090. Why? Because Jenkins is already working with port 8080, right? We can't use the same what do you say, port for different services. Or if not, if you guys wanted, like in the last part, you can create one more standalone server and start doing the work from the Tomcat server as a separate entity, right? Okay, fine, good. This is also looking what do you say, things are looking good for this point too. Now what we need to do is we will write some specific jobs in Jenkins such a way that all these dots are going to be connected with one another. So like going and adding the webhooks. So on changes, code should be pulled. Then the build process should happen. Then unit testing cases might be invoked. Thereafter, static analysis might be done. If things look good, you might go ahead and store it in your Nexus server. From there, it needs to be deployed onto the Tomcat server. We can check all these particular things in a step-by-step approach, right? Okay. So now, till this point, I hope everyone is good. So this is something that we did in our earlier sessions. Like all this, we worked as a different set of tools and practices to go with. Now the thing is, how am I going to use Jenkins to connect all these dots together? So I said Jenkins has a concept called as pipelines. We see something like this. You see, building, you might do some kind of testing related things. Then you might go ahead and do the deployments like this. There are different things. Here you can see like code, deploy, then promote it to some other environments. Like there are different ways they are going and constructing the pipelines. And you can check this is a different one, functional testing, load testing. So we can go ahead and exactly implement the same thing for our project perspective. Meaning we have took that project repository something, right? For that project repository, we want to implement all of these things. Okay, so let's go ahead and kind of invoke the things first. In here, okay, let's start slowly creating the jobs first. So first we'll create the jobs. I'll explain you why I'm creating the jobs. Then later we'll try to create the pipeline in the simplistic format by using graphical approach. Then later we will convert the same thing into a piece of code where we write something called like Jenkins file. In the Jenkins file, we are going to put some kind of instructions like how you did it in Ansible, right? In the same way. Right. Okay. So first, let's prepare the things from Jenkins point of view. Here, as of now, you can see there is nothing on our Jenkins dashboard. Now I'm going to slowly create jobs for our project. So for timing, we are going with freestyle projects. Then later we'll also work with this pipeline project. Now I'm going to say this is going to be my code validation. First, I'll check whether all the code present in this particular project repository is a valid code, all the compilation, if there are any kind of dependency issues, metadata perspective, if all the things are good, then only we want to proceed with the next steps. Right. So I'm just going to say freestyle project. As we already installed plugins, right, guys? So you're going to get information regarding your source code management. And we know our repository is this thing. I'm going to take this project repository. We're going to call it off here. Now it's going to pull the code from this repo, and I'll get into my build section and we'll add our build instructions. We're going to say we want to perform Maven validate and compile. So if I call compile, it's going to automatically do the validation and also start doing the compile, or if not, I'll check it. So first it will check all the project repository related information is correct, which includes the tags that are used in this form.xml file. Dependencies are properly went with the versions, right? And also compile will make sure that from the source code point of view, all the syntactical things are correct. So there should not be any kind of syntax errors moving forward. So that's what we are doing with this code validation part. Once this is good, then only we'll slowly get into the next part. Let's say save it. Now let's do an initial build to confirm if everything provided for us in the first place is valid or not. Right. So whatever the code they have given us, right, is for this point of view, that code is good. We don't have any kind of problem with the code as of now. It looks completely fine there, right? So no problem with this code. Next, what we are going to do is once this code validation is done, Then we're going to start checking if the test cases are there on this project. In case if there are test cases, we want to go and start executing those test cases. And then we will start working with respect to the next step, like doing the analysis on the code for vulnerabilities and bug checks. It's a new item. And this time we will perform our unit testing on our application. And instead of going and creating again same thing, we'll directly get it from our code validation part. Okay, and this time, instead of going through validate and compilation, we'll simply invoke our Maven test. Save this part there. Now let's see if the test cases on our project are valid. And like I said, yes, any of these failures, we don't have anything to fix. Developers will are the ones who are going to make the changes accordingly. And it's the same, I guess now you can see, we already have those test cases, everything properly set up. So no problem with the help of testing point of view, right? Same way, now how we perform the testing. I'm just going to do the analysis for this particular code. I'm going to do the same part. I'll simply say we want to do sonar analysis on this project. And we are going to copy it from unit testing. And we're just going to say build. And instead of this Maven test command, we already prepared our command to go ahead with the analysis. Maven sonar. Then followed by the login URL. Then followed by the credentials. Now I'm going to save this part here. Now we'll try to see if sonar analysis is done. Then we should be able to check our sonar projects info over here. As of now, it says the same thing. So once you analyze the project, they will start showing up here. Now let's go ahead and execute this part. Okay, perfect. Yes, now it says analysis is successful. We can start checking our results from the following page. Simply if I go here. Right. So this thing, as you can see, from the code perspective, it's all good. So there are what's a couple of code smells. Apart from that, there are no major bugs or vulnerabilities on this particular app. And as this thing looks without any particular issues, now I'm just going to start taking the artifact from this particular project, and then I'm going to start doing the deployments. Now I'll go ahead and prepare one more job for the same part. Then let's say new part. Then let's say publish artifacts. We are going to do it from testing. Now we know in order to do that, we need a command called as Maven deploy. But here it is, artifact catching, right? So I'm just going to clean off the old results. And then I'm going to say package and then do the deploy, right? So that in the future, any kind of new code comes up, we want to get rid of any existing code and then start doing the package and deploying it on top of our Nexus repository. As of now, you can see it's empty. But once the build is done, then we want that particular build to be, available in our Nexus repo, which, yes, now let's try it. Let's save this part. Let's build it. We are pretty much sure, guys, it's going to fail, obviously. Why? Because the addresses are not matching up. If you see your results, you see it is trying to upload to some server called 54.117, 157, and 113. But actually, our Nexus is hosted on completely a different, URL. So it's not going to work, right? So after some time, it's going to say connection timed out and failed. Instead, what we are going to do is we are going to provide the appropriate changes where in our pom.xml, right? Okay, so I'm just going to get into my pom.xml and then start making the changes. Yeah, this is not going to work, obviously. I'll just discard this build off instead of waiting. We discarded that build. And now I'm going to head back to my, project repository. Better, I'll do it in my local machine itself so that I can also show you later if I change the versions, if my app goes and gets the things or not. I'll say git clone this particular project repository. And within our pom.xml, this is not the relevant address. My relevant address here is this server. This is where we want to update the things. So now I'm going to say git add this change commit or what do you say, repo info, binary repo info, and then we're going to make the push. Right, yes, now the changes has been pushed to our remote repository, and let's see if we build this time, will it be able to get it done? Okay, something got wrong here. Achha, okay, fine, I got it. Why? Because we know it will give us something called like unauthorized error, right? We saw the same thing while we were working with respect to this tool called Nexus, because Maven is the one who is trying to actually upload to Nexus. Maven does not know what are the proper credentials. So now I'll just go and add the same thing with our previous patch. We have a question from Shiva Kiran. Maven validate compile is to get build success in console. It's not going to generate the artifacts, Shiva. So you can just check it. When you do this MVN validate compile, right? You go to your earlier projects, you can just verify. You don't even need to ask me further. So if you go and check the VAS part, in my target, do you see any artifacts? No. Artifacts will only come once you do the package command, but here it is all about validation. So where the artifact is generated in this patch. There you go, see your results. That's your artifact actually, right? It will be only generated once your testing and all these things are properly performed. Okay, so at that point of time only we are checking syntactically all the code is valid or not the application itself. All right, okay. Now okay, what was the error we got here? Okay, it was unauthorized error, right? Yes. Okay, now our app is not able to authorize our like Maven is not able to authorize this particular command. Why? Because it does not know what are the credentials of Nexus. And you guys remember I showed you one particular file actually. So if I duplicate and log in into the server, sorry. in here. So I showed you one config file /user maven user share maven configurations, and there is a file called settings.xml, right? And this is where we need to add the Nexus user credentials, right? Yes, we had a section called servers. Yes, there you go. I'm going to get this set of file lines and I'm going to update it under my server section. We know ID is releases. And check it in summary. This repository ID is releases. And we know the credentials for this part being three. Right. Now let's go ahead and try to build the job and see if our what do you say product will be, our artifact will be updated here. This time it should pull up the information of what is the latest version which we updated in GitHub, and you can see now it said it has successfully what is it transferred our artifact. So it says build succeeded and it uploaded successfully. Now if I look at my things, there you go. Right, so our 1.3.0 WAR file is available for us. Right, okay, perfect. Now the next thing that I want to check is from here we want to do the deployment with respect to our Apache Tomcat, and we know our Apache Tomcat, what do you say, we have a directory called as web apps directory, and then we are going to start working with respect to the things, right? Okay. We have a question. What is the main purpose of pipeline? You'll see that that's what I'm trying to show you. Now I'll tell you the problem. So that's the reason why I'm going with all the bits and pieces. Once I am done with this deployment also, then you'll understand why there should be a concept called as pipeline, how it can be helpful for you once you have the concept called pipeline there. Right? Yeah, just done. It's almost done. So once this deployment part is also done, then you might see the actual use or why we are supposed to have a pipeline in the first place. Okay. All right. Now, guys, we are almost good with all our steps. Like we are able to fetch the code, build it, then kind of test it, release it. Now we are going to do the deployment on top of our Tomcat server. Okay, let's complete that step too. As you can see, we didn't set up any credentials actually. It would have been better if we have set up the credentials. Fine. If not, I'll just stop it for a couple of minutes and then we'll set up the credentials too, so that you can see like how the apps are getting deployed also. Bin Apache Tomcat configuration directory. And you remember we had a file called tomcat-users.xml, and in there I'm going to add some username and password to login, like how we did in our previous sessions. Yeah, we specified this is the username and password. Let's save the changes. Okay, now I'm going to start what do you say, running the things. /tilt Apache Tomcat bin directory startup.sh, right? Same thing. I'm going to say right manager app, and now we know the credentials are Tomcat and Tomcat. Did I give any other name? Oh, I did not shut it down, right? Sorry, I forgot to shut it down actually. Apache Tomcat bin shut down, and then later we'll restart it once again. Okay, just a second. Right, there you go. Now we can see this, there is no app deployed here, and we want to do the same thing. I'm going to use my thing called what is it? Apache, sorry, Jenkins to do the same deployment. So it is should fetch the code from the part there, download it to this part, then transfer the artifact to my what is it? Tomcat server, right? Okay. Now let me go through this. So I'm showing you the easiest part is, then you will have the same task to be done from the Docker and all that later. Like I said, I'll give you the requirement part, right? So you need to understand this so that you can apply these techniques later with respect to the tools that you already learned. So now publish the artifact. Now we need to deploy the artifact. I'll say deploy the artifact or application, and we're going to copy it from what is it, publish artifacts or somewhere. Yep. Okay. Now it's a little bit different, yes. Why? Because I might not need all the steps, right? Yeah, there is no need of copying. Okay, we'll directly create one. Why? Because already the product is built for us. Okay, what happened? Once again, deploy app. Yeah. Now the thing is, we don't need any code or things. Why? Because already our thing is ready. Now what I can do is in my build steps, first thing is I need to download my software, and then what I can do is I'm gonna copy this particular software to my what do you say, Apache Tomcats directly. But the thing is, as we are doing the work from Jenkins perspective, we might not have really the permissions to do so. So what I'm going to do is, the first thing, I'll add my Jenkins user to the sudoers, right? So then we can go ahead and perform the root level permissions. If not, I'm going to get the error, guys. Like, let me show you. We need to download that, right? Okay, we need to use wget command. Wget command, user and pass. Wget hyphen user. User is admin and password is also equal to admin 123, and then the URL, right? Yes, the URL you are going to get is from your Nexus software. There you go. And we need this to be downloaded to some specific path. So we need to mention the path with wget. Okay. Specify output directory. So you can use -p, it seems. Okay. Let's see URL. After URL, you need to use -p, then path to the folder. Okay, that means path. Okay. After your URL, say capital P, then what it says, specify the path to the folder. Okay, where is our folder? Here in our home directory, CentOS user. In there, we had this thing called Apache Tomcat. In this web apps, yes, that's where we wanted the software to be updated, right? Okay, now let's try to see and run it, and let's see what kind of error it might throw. As you can see, most probably it might say it cannot write it to the file. Permission got denied. Why? Because we don't have this permission. But if I try to run the sudo command, right, it's going to give me a different set of errors here now. Okay, we will go with sudo. So there are multiple ways. I'll try first this way. If it works out fine. Second way also, it said you don't have sudoers access, right? Okay, fine. So this time what I'll do is I'll get back to my system, and then we are going to what do you say, grant sudoers permission. Got closed. Okay. Another thing is we need to modify the sudoers file. I'm going to say sudo vi sudo. In here we had a group called wheel. There is also one group which does not have any kind of password. I'm going to take this and paste it off. Instead of this wheel group, I'm going to add a user called as Jenkins. Okay, and I'm specifying no password. Why? Because we don't want any manually typing the password while Jenkins goes and performs this particular task. And I'm just going to give it. Please start off Jenkins. Okay, now let's try to see if it picks it up. All right, okay, now this deploy app, I'm going to do once more the build, and let's confirm if it's able to download it. Now you see guys, it was successfully able to download the things and set up the software, right? I can see this 1.3 version is deployed and it says good. Now if this is successful means we should be able to see our app running up. We can see 1.3.0 app that is going up, and it just launched that same particular app we went with. Okay, now with this what we have all the steps completed. So whenever the code is coming up, new changes are happening. Next time onwards, what for next versions or next new features, or if there are any bug fixes you want to make the changes, these things should be updated on regular basis, right? In that particular scenario, isn't it complicated to go and work with each and every job? Imagine that you got a little bit more complexity. You have some QA environment, some dev environment, some what is a SID environment. Like this, you have multiple environments. So you are going and managing individual jobs, right? But we know actually what, according to what do you say, having some experience with respect to how these things work, right? We always know that whenever first time the code changes happen, this is what you want to do. If this is succeeded out, next we are pretty much sure that you might want to run few things related to the testing part. Then you might want to go ahead and perform some bug analysis. If things are good, then you might want to go ahead and publish your changes that are working up perfectly. Then at the end, you might want to go ahead and deploy your products. Curious. Now, how many times will you keep on going and repeating the same step? Right? I hope now you're getting the point. Is so instead of going and repeating all these steps in a what do you say, this particular fashion each and every time, and also now if something goes wrong, I need to check every individual parts. Like imagine something went wrong while doing the testing, then what I need to do, I always need to go to this particular testing phase and check what's wrong. Nope, something went wrong at the deployment stage. Again, I need to go through the deployment stage, then check what's wrong, right? Instead of doing like this for each and every individual job, we want all of them to be present in one single page. Like this. right? So instead of going to each and every individual part, right, we want all of our things to be present in one single part, so that if things went wrong, where it went wrong in a single dashboard itself, I should be able to see the part there. And that's where you guys need the concept called as pipeline. Clear? Yes, I mean, like, now you understood, like, this is not pipeline literally, this is just like what individual things which are there as a part of your project, like individual practices or activities that you go with it. Those are all these things, and it might be few less or few more. End of the day, it depends upon what kind of tools you have developed, what do you say, your organization is basically implementing. Good. Yes, any questions from this part, you can go ahead. Yes, now what we implemented till point of time is what you learned as of now, like all these bits and pieces. No, it's completely different. Sai Krishna, Azure DevOps is completely different. Jenkins is completely different. Right? Azure DevOps uses a different, it's a service based thing from what do you say, Azure vendor, whereas Jenkins is an universal tool. Like I said, Azure DevOps will only work in Azure. You can't implement outside, but Jenkins is something that is universal. Wherever you want, you can implement it. Right? Same process. That's what, see, it's a tool, guys. Like either you are using git command in my machine, in your machine, in AWS machine, in some other XYZ machine like Google Cloud or Azure, those things will never change. But when you are talking about the like what you say, vendor login, so this Azure login or what you say, sorry, Azure DevOps or AWS DevOps, right? These are vendor login, meaning those will work only with respect to their domain, right? Yes, basically we just got to see how the things worked, Govind. As of now, what's happening with the code part, what's happening when the build happens, what's happening when this testing is done, what happens when we go with this, what is the artifact storage, then how we basically go ahead and deploy. Now, the thing is, all of this needs to be connected. Connected in the sense, like I said earlier. So let's say right now, some particular developer he went and he updated some changes, whatever the changes. I'm not sure whether the changes are what do you say, bug fixes or new features. As these changes get affected, we know these changes, end of the day, they will be pushed into GitHub. Now there should be some entity which always goes and makes sure if there are any changes happening on your projects. And like already said, we discussed a concept called as webhook triggers. This thing, it's going to make sure what do you say, when there are new changes coming up, it starts pushing it to the part. Now the Jenkins is going to fetch any particular new changes, whatever the new changes which are coming as a part of your what do you say, repository. Like right now, this developer made some changes and he pushed the changes to GitHub. Jenkins basically fetched it. Now it's going to start doing the things. Now, as a part of our delivery pipeline, we said we want to make sure whether the code is what do you say, correct or not in the first place. That's the first thing that we checked. If it is valid, then next we said we want to go ahead and start making sure that if our testing that is done for this app functionality is working or not. For that, we use some kind of what do you say, unit testing. Now, it's not mandatory that it should be only unit testing. So any kind of tool to go with. If you are using Selenium, integrating those commands. Once this particular part is done, then I said, okay, once your unit test cases are done, maybe you want to go ahead and perform if things are good from the code perspective. You go ahead and perform sonar analysis. If this thing looks good, no, then you might want to go ahead and make sure you publish your software so that all our artifacts which are coming up, we want to make sure all those are stored with us for the future parts. And once this particular thing is done, yes, you might want to go ahead and start doing the deployments. Now, this is the simplest format of how the things are working to make you understand the part. But later, like I said, this is just like what is a starting part for our project. Once you understand this, I'm going to show you like what is the code part. Then later I'll give you my requirement where things are going to be drastically changed. This is to make you understand the concept first, but my requirement is going to be a little bit different. Okay, right. Let's see, we got one more question. When we get into organization, it is going to be completely installed and how to know the naming conventions. Installation, it depends upon the things going. Let's imagine you are already working for an organization where already these things are set up fine, but in case if the things are not set up, obviously you should be also in a position where you can set it up, but generally you'll have admins for all this part. So like if you're going with 2 years 3 years of experience, right, they might not ask you to set up an highly available or what is a production level Jenkins. Separate team will be there for handling that, right? And that's like most likely, I said, if you are going with around like 5+ years of experience, right, then they might definitely ask you to do that kind of stuff where you need to go ahead and set up the things, make sure the high availability part is ready for the things, you need to manage it. But that is like depends upon what kind of role and experience you're also opting for. All right, okay. So this part clear is everyone now. So like how the things are moving from one particular stage to another stage when it comes to our project part. Now the only difference here is, like I said, things might change once you get into your company based upon what kind of project you are using, what kind of build tool you are going with. You need to check the appropriate instructions and start working with it. In our scenario, this is how we followed up with our codes. Now for the same thing, we are setting up the pipeline basically, right? Okay. So now next what I'm going to do is I'm going to start installing a few plugins, and then we will start what you say is going with our bits and pieces, like I said, right? So connecting all these bits and pieces with our Jenkins patch, right? Okay. We'll take like a 5-10 minutes break. Guys. We'll just take 10 minutes break and we'll continue, right? Just we'll catch back at 3:20. Okay. So in the meanwhile, what do you say? You can just go through this diagram once. In case you had any questions, we can ask it. Right? Okay.
Ravi told that having some break, right, he will be available at after 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Vishwanath, Akash.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
ఎవరన్నారండి?
Sure. Sure.
Yeah, let's continue this. Let's see, we got some question here. What if we revert back the previous version of an artifact and parallelly new version is being developed at the same time? You can use Kubernetes, right, Govind? That's what the purpose of Kubernetes, I said. We can, any given point of time, you deployed your app, so you want to immediately revert back and you want to go with a new version, right? We can use our Kubernetes actually. That's the reason why we learned that particular tool, so that deployment becomes easier. You checked, there was something called like kubectl rollout command. We went with this part, right? Exactly same way. You can roll out your deployment. So in case you want to update some deploying the things, you want to roll out, right? You can just go ahead with the same commands. It's already pre-built into our particular tool called what do you say? Kubernetes. That's where the purpose of Kubernetes is basically going to come up. And even you are going to do the same thing. For my particular scenario, when the new version comes up, it should be updating and the old version should be replaced, right? Or let's say new version is not working up, you might want to go back to the what do you say, old version. Then you can easily use the concept called as Kubernetes over here, right? Okay, all right, fine, guys. So now let's say we got to see how our Jenkins is helping you to create individual set of jobs. But now how am I going to set up all the things in one go and start using our, what do you say, pipeline to connect all these things together. Now that does not happen by default. So there is a plugin that we need to install initially first. Once this particular plugin is installed, then we will go ahead and start working, what do you say, with connecting the jobs together, like how I rolled out this particular image here, right? I'm just going to do the same particular thing now. Let's see. Now, first I'll clear all these things off. Okay, right. Now the part is, I'll try to show you. Now, if I say, generally we will have something called like pipeline views here, but I can't find any pipeline view. Reason because it's not installed, right? Now, this is not general practice, guys. This is just for you to make you understand the simple process, how you can set up a pipeline in a simple and what do you say, clear approach. Then later we might go ahead and use some kind of what do you say, code to manage the same pipeline, so that it can also be placed inside your GitHub, and then you can directly run the pipelines from your GitHub itself, right? But first, let's try to understand the easy approach. But this is not really practiced, right? Generally, people who are initially starting their things or career with Jenkins, they might go with this approach. But this is just for you to understand it in a simple approach. Okay, right. So we don't have any pipeline. So first, let's install this thing. Manage Jenkins, manage plugins. We'll see the what do you say, plugin called build pipeline. Right. This plugin we are going to go with this, and it says this plugin renders upstream and downstream jobs typically from a build pipeline. In addition, it also offers the ability to define manual triggers and also requires some kind of what do you say, approval process as well if you want. Now I'm just going to install this particular plugin, and let's see how the things change. But don't really follow this in real time. Like I said already, this is to make you understand the things in a little bit easier approach. But actual purpose is, we'll always manage the pipeline with the help of Jenkins file. We'll see how to write the Jenkins file next once this is done. Yes. Now you see we have installed this particular plugin. Now if I get back to my jobs, now you see guys, it says here pipeline view. Now we are going to create a view, and then we'll start placing our pipeline in this view. Let's call this as my app pipeline, like whatever the app you are working with. Now it is asking some description. You can just write this. This pipeline is for my what is a Java app, right? Okay, pipeline title. Okay, you can say app CI/CD, something like that. Then yes, now it is asking up based upon your jobs, what should be the initial thing to get go with. You see code validation, deployment, artifacts. There are different set of things. I know my things get started with code validation first. So when the code is coming up first, we want to check whether that code is valid or not. On that basis, we want to go ahead and perform the next steps. Now it is asking some display options, which this is just like for user friendly way to go and check the things, guys. Like I'll say 3, so that you can do the comparison. Like it will show you the last 3 results. Refresh for every 3 seconds. Looks good. I'll say okay. Now you see your pipeline is having only one step, but in comparison, whatever the pipelines we saw earlier, when we saw it, they were having so many different options. You see, right now we are having only one option. Reason because we did not connect all the other things. So currently my pipeline is there. If I click on this run, my pipeline runs, but this will be only specific to this part. So if I say run, it's running the second time. But what it's only running the code validation. And if I run it next time, this time also it's running. Now, like I said, right, it will only hold the last 3 results. If I run once again, then again you see the 4th one caught up, like 2, 3, 4. The last 3 will be visible. But here now the thing is, we don't want to again go ahead and start checking the parts there. Now I can just directly check from here itself code validation, how the things went. Now that's the exact same thing I want for all these particular, what you say guys, individual steps. So code validation, unit testing, code analysis, going through the release, going through the deployment. I want you to go ahead and start working with those parts. Now what? We need to connect the dots together. I know already. So here itself, you can see now the pipeline, like how the things are going up. But the problem is what now we want to go ahead and start working with the things. Now I'm going to say one by one. So in order to go ahead with this unit testing, I'll say configure. You remember this, there was an option called as build triggers. I'll say build this project after other projects are built, which means if code validation is successfully done, then you go ahead and perform this particular, what you say, project called as unit testing. Now I'm connecting the dots. Build triggers are used for the same thing, when to invoke the job. Same way. Sonar analysis, configure, build triggers, build after other projects are built. This needs to be done once the unit testing is successfully invoked. Same way. Publishing the artifacts. For this, the build trigger would be what do you say? Sonar analysis. Same way. Next, deploy the app. This should be done when the publishing artifact is successfully done. Now you see the dashboard. Now if I click on my pipeline, you see now it is showing up all the bits and pieces which are required for your part there. So you'll go through the code validation, then perform the unit testing, then go through the sonar analysis, then publish the artifact, then you go ahead and deploy your application. Now what, here everything is set it up. Now we know like what earlier version of our application, if you guys checked it, what it was saying, it was going through the build called 1.3.0, right? Now I'll go ahead and I'll try to make the changes, and then I'll start running the pipeline to see if it really picks up our new changes and starts moving forwards. Now what I'll do is, let me go ahead and again build the new changes and push it up. in here, this is our project, yes, in here. And we know in the pom.xml, I can directly make the changes and verify this, yes, if it really picks up the new version from here itself. I'll say 1.3.1. I'll make the changes. I'll add this pom. And then I'll say, let's say 1.3.1. And I'll start pushing these changes. Now a new version called 1.3.1 is pushed. And now that 1.3.1 is what our, app should start picking up. Now the Jenkins should take this thing and move forward. Now let's go ahead and try to run this pipeline once again. And let's see now if it is going to pick up all the things one by one. Now code validation, thereafter unit testing. It will automatically start. Now I'm not going to do anything. Just wait for it. It will, automatically triggers the things behind the scenes. Now you see unit testing is done and sonar analysis is being performed. Same way, next it will also try to go ahead and invoke the artifact publishing. Now you see, now it's easy for me to go and check the things. Okay, what happened at this particular code validation? Now you can see it started picking up our version called 1.3.1 version. It's going through the patch. Same way, now I want to check with respect to my unit testing. Now I hope you got the point, guys. Now you see, as every time changes happen, it will automatically start going through the part. Now here everything is automated except for this particular patch. This is the one which we are manually triggering by using this run button. When we run this, this is going and invoking this, next followed by this chain, next followed by this chain, next followed by this chain, and whatever next coming up, you have some specific other operations, you just go through that. Now here, this is the only one which we are kind of, depending on the manual part. Instead of doing this manually, now for all of them, I have kept the build triggers, isn't it? If I clear the screen off, you see, build trigger is set for this one, this one, this one, and this one. But this is the only job that we didn't set the build trigger. Now for this also we'll set the build trigger. This time the build trigger is going to be webhooks. I hope you are getting the point, guys. So when we go ahead and as a developer, whenever there are new changes invoked, this trigger will kind of invoke this particular job, then followed by it is a chain reaction with respect to all the jobs moving forwards. I hope you got the point, guys, everyone. Right, even let's check that too. So now what I'll do is I'll add a webhook trigger, and we already know how to work with the webhook triggers, right? So I'm just gonna get into my first let me copy my Jenkins URL. Now I'll get into my project settings, and there is an option called as webhooks. Most probably it might have some webhook. Yeah, we will delete this old one. Now we'll add the webhook, and our payload URL is this one. So that's my payload URL, and it's going to be github-webhook/ and yes, for the push events. Now we have our Jenkins also invoked with respect to our GitHub part, meaning what? Next time onwards, whenever changes happen, so I need to go and add the webhook trigger for this particular job, our initial job. So initial job will be triggered when we make the changes, and this will create a sequence of events where all our other jobs are also going to be start working up. Let's see, we have some question. In Jenkins, we have something called as Polysem. Polysem is the same thing as in case you have a kind of workflow where you want to make sure only after a specific time interval is done, you want to do the builds, then you can go for Polysem. So imagine you have kept your trigger at 4 p.m. Now till that 4 p.m., whatever the changes that were pushed, those changes till that point of time will be picked up, then the build will be done. So you'll be basically waiting for that particular time interval to be invoked. Whereas this one, we are trying to do the checkings, right? So that's the reason why we went with webhook triggers, so that we got to see like as soon as the changes are done, we are able to pull it off. There's only small difference. PolSCM is it's a combination of your webhook trigger as well as your what was the thing that we used? It's called as build periodically. The build periodically option plus your webhook trigger is basically called as policy. It depends upon the things, Govind, like based upon your project. So if you are having a huge team where a lot of people are working on your repository with so many changes coming up on frequent basis, then you might opt for policy. Right? Generally, yes, if you are working for a big scale organization, right, definitely you would implement policy. Same thing. Now, all the thing that you need to do is for the PolSCM part, right? Yes, let's imagine this is your job right now. Obviously, this is the one that you want to trigger. You'll simply say build triggers PolSCM, and you give your thing like star star 4 star, like that. You just go with the part there. But we need to wait for that specific time interval to be done. Then it will automatically pick up your changes that happen till that point of time, and you're going with it. Instead of this bot, like right now we are going with this thing. Why? Because we want to check as soon as these changes are done, is it being really picked up or not? That's the only small difference. All right. Okay. Okay. Now let's see. As I made this update, now next time onwards, my pipeline, I don't want to run this manual button called run. Now it should be automatically triggered by itself. Now let's go ahead and try to see if I make a change, will it pick it up automatically? As of now, there are no changes. I'll go ahead. And so now we'll try to go with new change. What was the last change we did? 1.31, right? 1.3.1. Maybe now I'll go ahead and add 1.3.2, and let's see if it picks up the new version 1.3.2 for our job here. And we'll go and update. Right, this 1.3.2, and we're going to make the push. Now, whenever this push is invoked, automatically now our pipeline should start running by itself. Let's see. There you go. Now the sixth pipeline automatically start running up, and slowly it starts going with each of the steps. Now you see unit testing, and if we go ahead and verify our changes, yes, it in fact picked up our 1.3.2 version. Now it's taking up 1.3.2 version, and now you see guys, it goes all the way without any kind of manual interventions. Now, unless your build steps are getting changed, or you're adding any kind of new mechanism or any kind of new step within your build, then you need to go ahead and add those things. But as of now, all the changes are going to be picked up and then start working with respect to our things. Right? Okay. Now this looks good, fine. Like for understanding purpose, it's a better approach to go and follow up to see like how the pipelines are actually getting in the first place, like how they work in the first place. But like I said, generally in real time, if you already have what do you say, little bit experience, right? You'll be like more inclined towards the code part rather than what do you say, relying on this graphical interface. So for that, there is a concept called as pipeline as a code. Fine, this is good. Like I already said, right? So this is good aspect in terms of understanding the concept in the first place. But once you understand this concept, right, it does not make sense each and every time going and what do you say, using the graphical interface to do the things. You want to do some modifications, you want to add some new steps. Now that might be a little bit a complicated way to achieve the things if you are going with the graphical approach. That's where we already know the what do you say, advantages of working with the code. You already saw like code is reusable, you have versioning, right? In case something went wrong, you have the auditing control. You can see how the things changed over a span of time. Now you also want all the same things that you got for what do you say, code, even for your pipelines. That's where Jenkins has given you a concept called as what do you say, Jenkins file. There is a concept called as Jenkins file. Using that particular Jenkins file, literally what you can do is you can put all your particular instructions like you had in this pipeline. Step one is to get the code. Step two is to perform some kind of what do you say, unit testing. Step three is to perform some code analysis. Step four is to publish the artifact. Step five is to deploy the app. Now all these particular steps you want to include in some code. That's where you're going to get a concept called as what do you say, Jenkins file. If I show you this thing called as Jenkins file, right? It says as discussed in defining a pipeline in the source code management. So basically what we want to do is whatever we defined the pipeline earlier, according to this particular image, this pipeline, whatever we did, now we are more interested in keeping that pipeline inside source code management. Inside that, what there is a file, Jenkins file. This is almost similar to your Docker file. How we wrote Docker file to go ahead and what do you say, kind of prepare our own custom things, right? This is what exactly happens with your Jenkins file. And simply, guys, it says this is also a text file that contains the definition of your Jenkins file, and it is going to be checked into your source code, right? So if you start seeing this example, it says creating the Jenkins file, which is later going to be checked into the source code, will give you like immediate benefits like code review, iteration of your pipeline, audit trail for your pipeline, how it changed, and also all the what do you say, things that are part of your project are going to be in one single place. So it's a single source of truth, right? So it can also be viewed by your project, like how your pipeline is working, what are all the steps that are there inside your particular pipeline, right? And you see, guys, there are two types of syntaxes also. One is called as declarative. This is more like our Ansible, which is easier to follow. And there is one more thing called as scripted pipeline. This is like more of a programming aspect, right? You can follow both this, it's up to you. So there are examples for both, how to go and work with declarative and also how to work with scripted. And it says both of them are used for building your continuous delivery pipelines, right? And it says both may be defined in a pipeline either using the web UI or using the Jenkins file, right? You can directly go with web UI and keep it there. Or but what I said, instead of using web UI, it is a better choice to go ahead and work with the what is a Jenkins file. And they said, though it's generally considered as a best practice to create your Jenkins file and then you kind of commit the same Jenkins file into your source code repositories, right? Okay. Now, like I said, guys, so this is how the sample definition looks for your particular pipeline. Really speaking, very simple. Now you see here right now, there is this pipeline. Then there is something called like stages, like build, test, and deploy, right? Literally speaking, these are individual jobs. Okay, so this is called as what you say, declarative pipeline. And let me see if they have given you the scripted pipeline. Here also, same thing, you see, little bit different. So you'll use something called like node and you go with the part, but steps wise, command wise, everything is same. It's only from the syntactical point of view, things are different. That's it, right? But whatever the commands you're going to run in order to go with the things, it's going to be exactly same, not much difference. But especially what you say, declarative pipeline is for what you say is more of what you say changes from Jenkins itself. Like you rely on Jenkins to make it, but let's say you already have some kind of Java programming knowledge. This tool called Jenkins, right? It was built using Java. In order to give the input, there is a programming called as Groovy. So if you know a little bit of Java and Groovy, right, then it's like you can configure your Jenkins or you can tweak your Jenkins with different inputs, which is like more of kind of pre-written or predetermined already inside this particular declarative pipeline. So yes, you can get the same thing done from declarative or scripted pipeline. Scripted is more from the programming aspects, and whereas a declarative is more like you just specify the input and it is going to give you the result. Whereas what is this scripted, you need to define and also you need to take care of how the things needs to be running up. That's one difference between the part there. Now, where do we keep all this? Like it's showing me the syntaxes and everything, right? Like build, test, deploy. What is the meaning of all this is basically, if I highlight the things, you're going to have something called like stages. Literally guys, these stages are like what I showed you in the Jenkins earlier. We had something called like a code validation. We had something called like a unit testing. Then we went with the sonar analysis, right? So these are all bits and pieces for our particular project, right? Now exactly same way, all the bits and pieces, if you are writing in the code format, you are going to put it inside some what do you say thing called as stages. So the stages is going to define all the things that are going to be part of your pipeline. Now for me, there are 3 stages over here. Let me go with one by one. So this is your build stage. In this stage, we are going to give. So here he has given something like echo, right? This, but literally what you can do is you can run your own commands, really to speak. Here, instead of echo command, I can simply say run any shell script or run any particular command in fetch. You can go ahead and run the command, or if you have any particular script file, you can even execute your particular script files. Your choice. Right now here, what instead of going and working with what you say this echo command, I'll simply say my Maven commands in order to go ahead. Not only Maven guys, you can run your Jenkins, Docker commands. You can run your Kubernetes commands. Why? Because all the things that we used were command line interfaces, right? You can run your Ansible commands. Literally speaking up, you can go ahead and execute anything, your choice. Why? Because any kind of command line thing that you went with in your previous sessions, you can simply call it here. We're also going to verify that too, anyway, right? Now, same way, we are also going to perform another stage, like whatever the things that you want to do as the part of testing. Yes, now that is one stage.
Hello, Ravi. We need to use the same name also, build, test, or else anything we can use.
No, that's just for reference purpose. Like I said, for us, like code validation, right? It's your choice, like what kind of activity you are performing, just name it there.
So this is not specific if these many tasks, these many steps, stages we need to do, right?
So this is just an example to make you understand, but these things needs to be specific. These are like the commands that you are going to replace in order to do the work for yourself.
Okay. So how many stages we want? Our choice only, right? So,
right. So as of now, we had 5, right? 5 stages. No, these guys, they need only 3 stages, 3 steps.
Okay,
If they
got
have
it.
like 7-8 steps, then 7-8 steps based upon what kind of tools and practices you are going with the implementation.
Got it, Ravi.
Right? Right? Yes. Then last is to go with this part. So exactly same way. What I'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll start trying to do the exact same thing, and we'll see how it's basically going to work off. Right now, say clear all this part. Now let us head to our part and see how we are going to prepare the pipeline now using the code parts. Now I'll say new item. I'll say the same thing. My code pipeline. Now you see, guys, there is a concept called as pipeline. It says orchestrate long running activities that can span across multiple agents suitable for building pipelines. This is also formerly known as something called as workflows. And what is the purpose of it? It will organize the complex activities that does not fit inside a single freestyle job. Right? Now, instead of going and doing everything like what you say, different things inside a project, right? You can directly keep them with the help of this concept called as pipeline. Yes, obviously we have like a lot of activities like code validation to go ahead and do the unit testing, then followed by what is the analysis of your code, then release, then deploy. Now all these bits and pieces, we are going to include this as the part of our pipeline right now. I'm going to say I'll select this pipeline and I'll go with it. Now same thing, it's asking some description. I'll say my app pipeline, and it has got the same thing, you see guys, build triggers and all that part. Now you can directly go ahead and write in the web console like this your script. And they also have given you the sample scripts, guys. You see, now if you say scripted pipeline, they'll give you. Now only the difference is what you're running the commands. It looks more like what you say typical scripting, but command wise there is literally not difference at all. Now the same thing, if we go with something like what you say, our thing called what we call it, this example. Now you see this, this is more of our what you say, declarative pipeline. So you can see stage, build, right? That's the only small difference, right? Now what I'll just go with this thing that they have given for us. I'll take as an example. This is web console once again, which is not really recommended thing, but just to see how it works. Now see, I went with the same thing as build, building, testing, and deploying. Now let's see if I save this and if I try to build now, what happens? You'll see the exact same result. You see, now we are seeing those three particular what do you say, stages, like how we saw for our earlier this app, right? Like how we had this 5 different set of things. We had the same thing right now, and you can check the logs here itself. Here you're just printing something like building, and whereas for this testing you're just printing something like testing, and for deploy also you're doing the exact same thing. Now in this particular scenario, now I want to go ahead and start what do you say, now preparing the things from my application perspective. Like I said, this is one way you can go ahead and do it, but generally this is not really a recommended practice to go with. Like our regular approach, I'm going to do the build from my Jenkins file itself. They said what? You go ahead and prepare this Jenkins file and then put all this piece of code. So for this part, what I'll do, I'll not go and work with the same thing as why, because again, if code validation changes, right, again, it is going to do the build. So for my previous graphical user pipeline, I'm removing that build trigger. If not, 2 times the pipeline will run. So I'll get into my code validation. Here, I'm going to remove this build trigger. If not, this will get triggered. Now good. Now I'll get back to my code pipeline. Now I'm going to make some small changes. Configure build trigger. sorry, pipeline I said, right? Now you see there is an option called as pipeline script from your source code management. Now it is looking for which source code management your code is available. I know my repo is this one. In my Git, there's a repository URL. And yes, in the branch name, and it is looking for a file called as Jenkins file, right? Now I'm going to create one here manually first to see if it really checks it out. In our webhooks, I'll get back to my code. Now I'll say add a file. So that's our Jenkins file. And we already have this piece of code, right? I'm going to take this piece of code. I'll place it in the file now. And I'm just going to call it as my some demo pipeline. Commit the changes. Okay. Now, okay, let's go ahead and save this. Now let's try to build and see if it is trying to fetch the things from source code management directly. Yes, now you see guys, it did exactly the same thing. It was able to get the changes from our source code management, do the build, test and deploy. But as of now, we know it. So these are all some simple print commands, but rather than this, we will upload our own things, right? And also I'll see if it will trigger automatically if I make the changes from the development perspective. I'll say configure. I'll also apply the build trigger now. GitHub hook trigger, as you can see, save this part. Now I'll head back to my code, which is this machine. I'm gonna say pull these changes. Now you can see guys, the Jenkins file also been updated in my local machine. Now I'll add some new steps like what we went with our code validation. And I'll say like fine, okay, we'll print some message also. Validate code. Then instead of this thing, I'm going to say shell command and execute mvn, what do you say, validate and compile. Let's check if it is really taking up these changes. Say git Jenkins file commit -m code validate stage. Now you see how the pipeline is also getting kind of what is it, version controlled. Now let's push and see if it really picks up the changes. Now you can see guys, a new job is in the pending state. Now it picked up the changes. Now you can see it got the code validation. Excuse me. Now in the code validation, if you check the logs, now you see guys, yes, it in fact picked up this version 1.3.2, and that was the last version that we made the changes, right? So it was able to pull it off and start doing the things. Meaning now, like I already said, why I was discussing all the command line tools, right? Because for this reason only. Now, any particular command that you work with, right? All the tools are command line tools. Those commands now you can start calling up inside this particular place right now. Are you getting the point, guys? Let's see, we got one question. Stage name matches with job created. Like that is for my user friendliness. I'm going with Shiva. It's up to you, like whatever the name you want. Based upon what kind of activity you are calling, just go with it. That's just a label. I hope now you got the point. It's not the same way you're performing the test, but as of now, tests, these are like dummy tests, right? So there is some simple print statement. Instead, what? Now you can go ahead and start adding new stages as per your requirements. Maybe for this time, we want to do some kind of unit testing. and I'll say go ahead and perform the testing part here. Now you see guys, what you need to understand from here is, if you already know how the process works with respect to your organization, things become easier with Jenkins. But if you don't know, then it's a challenge always for you. Like that's what I said in the initial sessions also, right? As we have one end-to-end understanding of this specific application, on that basis, now we are creating the things. But once you get into your organization, based upon what apps they are using, what kind of tools they are going with, you need to adopt the same thing with respect to your projects. Now, you just check, as I know this process, I'm pretty comfortable with going and doing all this work. I'll say, right. Right. Now let's see if it picks up the new changes from our part. Now you see what happens. Right. There you go. Now unit testing is also done. And if you see ambient test, yes, now we can see all the test cases and everything. It's working as expected, like I said. Now you can add all the relevant steps moving forward, right? Okay, let's see, we got one more question. If we want to publish the same code to, that's what, right, Saikish? Now, what is the purpose of our, what do you say, thing called as this Kubernetes? Now, like I said, Kubernetes is where you do the production part, right? Now, once your artifacts are retrieved, so that is what next I'm going to give you, like the task I said, right? You might understand, like, you know, you already know how this Jenkins is able to get the part there. Now I'll say, this is from the development perspective, you went with it. For my production, I don't want this approach. I want Kubernetes to be there. I hope you got the logic here. How the things would become for you is, where is that piece of code? Here, right? Yes. You said deploy, right? I'll say deploy to dev environment. Here what, I'll just run the script scp command, copy my var file to dev server. I hope you're getting the point. Exactly same way. Now you're doing the things from the prod perspective. Then what should be the command? kubectl apply -f prod.yml file. I hope you got an idea there, Sai Krishna. Right? Yes, you mentioned correct, right? Now from the dev perspective, in our regular classes, we used scp command. You go with it. But from the production point of view, my resources would be there on the Kubernetes. At that point of time, obviously, from the Kubernetes point of view, production service will be there on our Kubernetes cluster. Now what? You need to understand how to apply that kubectl command, how to go ahead and run our, what do you say, cops command, all those things you need to implement. And from Jenkins, you need to go ahead with that. Why? Because Jenkins can already run all those particular CLI commands. Good guys, everyone. I hope now you got the logic, right? Now I want you to implement all this particular code pipeline with respect to these steps. This is what I wanted to show you to make you understand the concept. Now comes the actual challenge. So this is not really a challenge, guys. I just showed you how the things work from a very, very simple point of view by using which you already know, right? Now coming to your goal, what you guys need to do for my projects, right? Till this point, everyone clear, guys? Next, I'm going to talk about the next steps, but whatever we discussed till this point of view, any questions, you can go ahead. Yes. Good guys, everyone. Okay, then fine. In that particular scenario, now I'm going to start, what do you say, giving you some small tasks from each of these particular tools that you went and learned, right? Now I'll be giving you the activities which you need to perform from the project perspective. Let's see what are all the activities that you are going to do now. Now this is your part is. Now you need to brainstorm till point of sorry, till point of time what the tools you learned. You need to customize them according to my requirements. Now this is my requirement for you. So first you need to set up this way. Okay, so you already have what you say guys, our project, right? So now from that particular project perspective, I'll keep this image in your document once you guys are good with it. Now, the first thing that you guys need to do is fork the project. I've already given you the repository link also, right? For the project. So once you fork this URL, this URL will be replaced with your name, right guys? So this thing will be your name. Meaning once you fork this particular project, okay, let's change the color. Now this is under your control. Why? Because you can't go ahead and make changes on my code, right? So that's the reason why I want you to first go ahead and fork the project. Next, I want you to start constructing the pipeline. This is basically what you did exactly in this particular part. First, you complete what I showed you. So basically, what do you say? Prepare all the, what do you say, 5 stages using code. Meaning what? Just prepare the Jenkins file and keep it ready. This is just for your reference purpose. Just you do this point, guys, like what? This is something that you already learned. You're implementing the same thing. Next, what I want you guys to actually do is, this is where your challenges start. Now, you were going and what do you say, preparing the Jenkins file. That part is done. Now, this is completely a different aspect, guys. Now, what I want you to do is build the project. When I'm saying build the project over here, you might say like already we did the build using Jenkins and Maven and all that part, but that's not what I'm looking for. So in the future, I'm going to adopt completely a different strategy for my organization. That was the first level or the easiest way to understand the concept of DevOps and pipeline implementation. Now I want you to build the project using some advanced things. Yes, guys, using Docker. Now, when I'm saying using Docker means, what you actually need to do is just think once, anyone. So I want you to build the project. I have given you the code, that's all. In your previous step, this was the piece of code, right? Now you have really your code.
We need to build the Docker file and upload into the Docker Hub.
Correct. Meaning what changes are happening on your project, those should be updated. So literally speaking up here, I'll also write what you guys need to literally do there. When new changes are made in source code, okay? Okay, when new changes are made in source code, what should happen means Jenkins should prepare the things, not in the regular approach. Jenkins should prepare new build. So what is the meaning of new build here, guys? Now, Jenkins should prepare a new build means what should be the outcome? New Docker image. Yes, did you get the point now? The code which is coming from the developer, that should be in the Docker format when you perform the activity. Meaning what? The outcome will make you or give you better understand once your build is succeeded in Jenkins. We'll be having var file, isn't it generally? But for me, what is the thing? We know this var file which you got. This var file should be end of the day what? Deployed on Tomcat, which is Dockerized. I hope now you got the point, guys. So you need to prepare your Docker file in such a way that whatever the new code that is coming up into your source code repository, that new code should be built, which results in the outcome of a new var file. That var file should be fetched and then it should be deployed on your Tomcat. That is what you need to do from this Docker perspective. Yes, this point clear, everyone? You
Yes,
recollect.
Yes, sir. It means we need to download the Tomcat from the Docker, right?
Not just downloading the Tomcat. You need to.
I mean, we need to create an image also.
We need to customize that according to this functionality. So
Okay,
it's not only Tomcat, there are multiple things involved. That's the reason why I'm saying there is Java involved. There is your, what is a web Java involved, JSP is involved. You got Maven involved here. You got Tomcat involved here.
Yes.
So all these things you need to see how they are going to fit in order to make our app work. So end goal is when I run this particular image using a container, I should see my calculator app function with new changes whenever I make the changes.
Okay, sir. Got it.
Right? Yep.
Ravi, one more thing.
Yes.
Rather than using any base image, we have to build our own image, right? A Docker image.
It's up to you. I'm not
Is it something
sure.
like that?
It's not something like that. You can use base image also, but you need to do some work around it. You need to, that's what, you can use a base image, but it's not going to give you the exact functionality as you need. So there is some tweaking involved, like how we did the tweaking in our sessions, right? You need to do the same thing.
Okay, okay.
Like we
Fine,
took
fine.
HTTPD, then we took the code and we modified. We took Node and we modified. Same way, you also need to do the same approach.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, Ravi.
Yeah, go ahead, Sridhar. Yes. Hello. Okay, sorry, I think you might be disconnected. All right, okay. This is first step. Now, what is the outcome? We already said the outcome of this particular thing is a Docker image. That's fine. Okay. But what am I going to do with this Docker image next? Where this Docker image should be deployed in the first place when it comes to production approach? Imagine, yes, you have a Docker image. Now you think from the production point of view.
Cluster.
Right, we need a cluster, right? Now where is the cluster? Is it created? No, right? Now I want you guys to start doing this part. This is another outcome that you need to get through. Now what about this thing? Now who is going to provide the cluster for you? Right. Now I want you to get the things done from your prepare Ansible playbook. For setting up a production grade cluster. So now you guys need to start writing some playbook in such a way that it should replicate all the manual steps which I showed you in the class. There were like so many steps involved while setting up this Kubernetes cluster, right? Now I want you to write some Ansible playbook to set up this production grade cluster. When I'm saying production grade cluster, it's exactly what I meant or what we did in the class with 2 worker nodes spread across different availability zones. Right. What is the outcome for this? Yes, obviously, you are going to get high availability. That's what I want for my what do you say, environment as well. Now for that, I want you to use your Ansible. So use Ansible to set up the cluster, and also you can prepare one more playbook to destroy your cluster as well, so that in case you want it, you can quickly run a file and you have your entire cluster ready, and you just go ahead and run another file like destroy cluster. It should take away the entire cluster also. All right, I hope you got the point, guys. So using Ansible. So next time in the future, whenever you want to go ahead and provision a cluster, it should not take a lot of time. All you need to do is just say Ansible -playbook and just run the cluster. That's it. You should be good with respect to your part. And that's where also you'll have some kind of hands-on experience with respect to Ansible as well. Now, once this cluster is provisioned, then comes the next challenge. So you build the image, then you made the cluster ready. Now we need to do the deployment with respect to your cluster, right? Now let's see what needs to be done. Deploy on your production cluster. Now, what I want you guys to do here is, you already did half of the part in Jenkins. When changes happen in, what do you say, your source code, that is GitHub, Jenkins should pull changes and prepare Docker build. Pull changes and start Docker build. Yeah, that's better. Once this Docker build is succeeded, what is the outcome? Which results in new Docker image. This new Docker image should be deployed on Kubernetes cluster via Jenkins. Right, so whatever you got it. Now in that particular scenario, what you are supposed to do is, like, my requirement is deployment with 2 replicas across zones and also using service my clients should be able to access the app via what is a load balancer. Which now I hope you understood how am I using my cluster to host the resources. Now, did you get the point? Now this is almost similar to what you did, but now you're doing the same thing using completely a different tool set. Then you need to run your Docker commands, Ansible commands, Kubernetes commands all together with these particular approaches. So that's the reason why, like I said, first you try to understand this model, what's happening. Then you slowly start getting into this particular part where you need to prepare the outcome. But this outcome later we'll be using inside our production cluster. But where are we going to get the cluster from? By using something called as Ansible. Clear? Yes, meaning literally what now you need to prepare files like what? Your own Docker files, your own Kubernetes files, your own Ansible files, your own Jenkins files. Right now, I want to see all those particular files updated within this particular repo, which you guys are going and forking for yourself. Good, yes, are you getting the point actually? What's happening?
Yes, sir.
Right? Yes, this is the first project. I have like a little bit more complicated things you can also do it, but first I want you to get through this. This itself is a little bit complicated. And this you already know. Next one is little bit complicated reason because I'm going to give you completely things which you don't know. It's not going to be our typical regular Java application. There, I'll just give this requirement and just give the code. I don't even know like what is the build tool, how it does. You need to do some research from your end from internet and then slowly start working on that part. But first itself, it's a little bit complicated. So once you're able to get all these things done, right, then really guys, and make sure while working up whatever the errors you get, even the small errors, right, everything you take screenshots, keep it in your separate document and note how did you resolve those issues. Like I said, this is the goal you need to reach. You were trying out, you got different errors. Don't leave even a single error also. Every error you take the screenshot, you keep it in a separate document, and then later how did you resolve it. So basically those will be the things that you need to talk to the while you're going with your interviews. So what kind of challenges you faced while implementing your pipelines, how did you containerize your applications, what is the root cause for your particular problem when you're preparing the Docker file, how do you go ahead and start debugging it, or how did you debug it. Those are all the answers that you need to go with this particular project itself. Literally, you can keep all these activities inside your roles and responsibilities once you're done with this project. All right, good. Ways everyone from the requirement point, are you good? Still confusion in the requirement? Make sure that you got the requirement clearly first. Then you can start doing the implementation part. Any questions on this part from the requirement? You can go ahead. Yes. But then I'm hoping like everyone got the requirement properly. Try it out anyway. You just go through that. Even I want you to share like how you implemented this project. So I'll give you like around 1 week to 10 days, guys. Like maybe 10 days is more than sufficient to implement this part. You take the next 1 week to 10 days part, and I want everyone to show me how you implemented the same thing. So I want you to fork the project and you keep all your files that you prepared. When we come in the next part, right, I'll see how you actually went and prepared everything, right? And as everything is code, you can in a fraction of minutes, you can show me the output. Why? Because with just one command, maybe half an hour or 45 minutes it might take, but I can see the entire thing. You'll just provision one particular command. I'll see the entire cluster up and running. Then you have your Docker files. It will automatically do the build. Then you have your Jenkins file, which is automatically going to the deployment. I want to see that in action. You prepare and keep it ready, and also make sure you go ahead and run one test run to see if all the things are working as expected. Then you go ahead and commit and push all those files into your respective GitHub repositories. And the next week when we come back, right, I'll be seeing like how you guys implemented. In case you got stuck somewhere, I'll give you the hints on how you can go ahead and set up the things in that particular class. All right, okay, fine. Yes, this is what I wanted to go with. Now, like what is it? Let's see, like I'll see, like in case if anyone does it in like 1 week, I can just go ahead and connect and we can check the results out. And once that part is done, if you want, like I can give you some other technology related projects, like if case you're working with Node, and but I don't like how it works, but DistilLink is going to give you the code. That's it. So that code you need to take and start doing the implementation. All right. Okay.
Sir, I have one doubt.
Yes, go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, in the manual, if we got stuck somewhere and we don't know how to move forward, then can we get any help from anyone of the staff, or will you be available?
I'll be not available. I have like my office work to deal with. Maybe most probably you might be having some support. Yes. But my sincere request is for this project, don't use any support at all. Why? Because this you already know. So I think you should be able to implement with whatever the knowledge you have till point of time. So even you can take the support, it's good for the things which you don't know, like second project, if I give that is completely out of the blue, maybe you can use some support there. But this project especially, don't use any support. Try your maximum extent and see why you're getting errors and all that part. Try to go with it. But still, let's say you're not seeing any results or you're not able to move forward, then fine, no problem. You can take the help.
Oh, thank you.
Right? Yep. All right. Okay. Fine, guys. Right. I'll close the session on next week. Most probably the same Saturday. We'll try to reconnect and we'll see like how you progress with your project there. Right. All right. Then we will also go ahead and discuss the other project once we connect in the next session. All right. Okay. Thank you, guys. Then right. See you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.